Okay, so moving on, we're going to see that our new error that's failing is about methods. So we can open about methods by going like that. An atom will pop it up over here. So we can close our old regular expressions folder and we'll get moving on this one. So here we have test calling global methods. So it shows us here that it's line 10 that's failing, so we understand that it's here. And we have an underscore, so that means we know that that's the one that we're going to be trying to address. So here we have got something called my global methods. So you'll notice that we're within a class called about methods, but there is a method that's defined up here. So this method is defined here, my global method. And you'll see that it's being called here with a 2 and a 3. So 2 and 3 are being passed in as A and B. So, and then Ruby has implicit returns, so A plus B is going to be equal to whatever that is, but 2 plus 3 is equal to 5. So this is going to be 5. So if we were to save this, we can just run rake again down here, and we'll see that we have passed another test, and now line 15 is failing. 15 is failing. Now this one's kind of difficult because you can't just throw this in IRB and get the response, because you'll get a no method error, undefined my global method. So we could get over that if we wanted to redo this in the IRB terminal. We could just copy this method into here, and then my global method, and it's being saved as that symbol. This shows us that it is now defined. And so now we could toss in my global method with 2 and 3, and it would return 5. And so that's how we got this guy. So test calling my global method without parentheses. So here, results is equal to my global method 2 and 3. Do you think that the result is going to be equal to 5 as well? I think so, because Ruby does not need parentheses. So my global, because we've already defined it, we should be able to just go 2, 3. And you'll see that returns 5 as well. So you don't actually need parentheses when calling methods in Ruby, unless you're starting to chain on commands, but we'll get to that later. So here, okay, so now we can run rake just to see if we've got it passing. We're getting a kind of strange error here. About methods on line 21 is causing an error, so we're not getting that normal rake thing. But that's down here on line 21, so that doesn't tell me that we've made a mistake up here. So yeah, let's have a look at this. It says, note, we are using eval below because the example code is considered to be syntactically invalid. Okay, so eval, this guy, and we want to enable the check. Ruby doesn't know if you mean assert equal, okay, my global match 2 and then 5, 3, or assert equal here. So rewrite the eval string to continue. It doesn't understand if you mean assert equal 5 and my global method. So I think that this is trying to tell us that because, so the eval is going to evaluate a string as a thing, and so maybe because it's in a string and it's got a semi-global in here, we need to pass it into like this guy. And I haven't seen eval used in Ruby like this very often, but that's the cool thing about Ruby Koans. So let's see if that helped. Okay, awesome. So that did make it. So basically what they're saying is that I think to have parentheses work inside of evaluations like this, you need to actually, sometimes you need to use the parentheses. So that's similar to like what I was saying. So here it didn't work to have no parentheses, but here it did. And so that's just something I think that they're trying to make you aware of. So about methods on line 36. So now we've moved down to line 36, and I'm getting the error from here. Wrong number of arguments is not a syntax error, but a runtime error. Okay, so here, this actually tells us the answer here if you were to look for an answer. But let's just go from it from here. Assert raise, so my global method. So fill me in expected, but number of arguments expected to be was raised. Syntax error. So assert raise, maybe we go syntax error. And if I save that and run rake, does that get us there? Expected syntax, exception, syntax expected, but argument error, wrong number of arguments. Syntax error. Global method. So this is not a syntax error, it's going to be an argument error. So let's try to save that and then run rake again. Looks like we still get it. Wrong number of arguments. Expected wrong number of arguments. But here we're on line 39 now. So now we're down here. Okay, so we set the exception to be equal to the response that was here. And so if we look down here, we see expected wrong number of arguments 0, 2 to match this guy here. So the exception should be logged as that. And so I think that we could go, wrong number of arguments here. And if we save that, that will run this. 39. Cool. So now we've moved on to 41. So basically what we're doing is just asserting that if we pass in a method and we don't have the right number of arguments, we want to assert that the argument errors come out to the what we saved as the exception.message. So you can notice that if you get errors, you can save the errors and then log the message that's associated with that error. So here we're saving another exception, and we're going to assert the raise here where we have too many methods. So one way we could do this is actually call this in IRB, and that would tell us what's going on. So if we pass in too many arguments, here again we're getting an argument error. So we want to pass in argument error because that matches. So once that happens, then we'll know that we're getting a wrong number of arguments, expected 3 and got 2. So now if we were to paste this, maybe run this, I think we should be better off. No. Expected wrong number of arguments to match wrong number of arguments given 3. Wrong number of arguments given 3, expected 2 to match / wrong number of arguments. So it doesn't like that I have a / there. I think we need to maybe add a / here. A /. Okay, so now if I save that, and this is an exit key, right? So I'm exiting out so that I can add a / in here because they expected this to match this. Given 3, expected 2. So let's run the rake on that one. Still didn't work. Expect wrong number of arguments, 3, expected 2 to match wrong number of arguments. Assert match. Wrong number of arguments. I think we could actually just pass in wrong number of arguments and we'd get a match. Okay, so now we're on to 114. Sorry, line 54. So 54 down here. So here they have method with defaults. So here A is not given a default value, but then B is given a default value. And the default value is default value. So test calling with default values. So assert equal 1 and then that method with defaults. So here we're passing in 1 as the A parameter and B has a default value. So it will render. So this will turn out to be a default value, right? Okay, so before we run that, we could test this by running it in IRB. So we pass it into IRB. So the wrong method comes to A and B. And so then if we were to pass in this guy, a method with defaults, we could run that and you'll see that it comes out as 1 and then the symbol of default value. So that just shows you that you can set default values, which makes it so that you'll have less likely of your program breaking with argument errors because you'll have default values, and so you can make your code more robust maybe. But what happens when you pass in a value for the default value? Well, I'm thinking it's going to be 1 and 2 because the default value is only assigned if the parameter is not passed in. So we can come up here and pass in the method with defaults and you'll see it's 1 and 2. And if we weren't to do it, and with that we could always do no parentheses as well, and that would still work as well. So Ruby can look pretty clean. That was just a lesson from the top. So yeah, let's run the rake on this. And this will show us that we're on line 55 now. And so we've moved past these guys. Oh, looks like we're not. Method with defaults. Expected 1 fill me in to equal 1, 2. Oh, you know what? I didn't save. So I came over here, press Command S to get rid of the blue bubble, and I rake it. And now we're on line 65. So as we're moving down, so method with variable args. Okay, cool. So args is here. This is very useful. You'll notice this is a splat operator, and then so assert value method with var args.class. Well, I'm not sure what that would be. So here we can just paste the method in, and then we can say method with var args dot class. Cool, so it's an array. So we know that when you pass in args like this, it comes back as an array. So I think that you can go like this, or you could say array.class, I think. Either would work. So now we're on line 66, which tells me that that worked. And so you could either do array.class, or you could just say it's an array by explicitly naming the class. Let's run the rake to see if that passed. 66. So yeah, we passed that one. So method with var args. So what do you think it's going to be if it's just like that? I'm guessing that this is going to be an argument error because we didn't pass in any args. Nope, it's going to be an empty array. Cool. So empty array. And then var args, what do you think happens here when we pass in a single character? I think that it's going to be 1. And then here, I think it's going to be, what happens is it takes this and turns in the the amount of things that you return as an array. So the next one will be 1 and then 2. So if we save this and then run the rake command, I think we should be past that. So now we're down to 80. Okay, cool. So here's 80. I just want to go a little bit more in deep with that. So if you've got a method with var args with variable arguments, you'll see that you can do that. So this works as long as you want. You could be crazy with it like this, even though this wouldn't be a great way to code. This would be able to pass in, and then you would have a long array like this. So with Ruby, being able to pass in the splat argument with args is a great way to be able to handle a bunch of data if that's what you want to be doing. So cool, let's keep going. So we had method with explicit return. So a non-return value. If you return the return value, another non-return value. So what's going to happen here? Well, okay, so if you call this method, so what happens here? Well, in explicit returns, it means that it returns the last thing unless there's a return value in front of it. So I think that this is going to return, so it's just saying which one of these is going to come back. So that basically what it's saying is if we save this memory, or save this method to IRB, we have method with explicit return, right? And I hit tab just to quickly do it because once it's in IRB memory, tab will auto-fulfill. So method with explicit return, what do you think that's going to be? I think it's going to return a symbol that says return value. So that's what it did. You'll notice, yeah. So we'll just throw this in here, return value. So yeah, I'm glad that they're going on to this one because now, so we notice that it doesn't return another return value, and it doesn't return a non-return value. So this means that this is an explicit return. Return is written into the function. But what happens in Ruby when it's not explicit return? So a method without explicit return. So here's the non-returned value, but here is the return value. So what Ruby does in a situation like this is it returns the last value that is illustrated in the function. And so if you were to call this method by itself, you're going to get the return value. So it goes into this guy, and then it just renders this in memory for a moment, I suppose, and then it returns the return value. So here, we're going to say return value. So if I save that and run rake over here, we can see we're on 118 now, so that's line 101. Cool, so 101, here we go. So my method is the same class, A, B. Test calling methods in the same class. So assert equal. My method in the same class. Okay, so what this is saying is it's calling this method here, which is my method in the same class, and then we're passing in 3 and 4. So and then we're going to have an implicit return. We could have the return statement here. It would be the same, but in Ruby you don't need that. You have implicit return. So you can just say A times B. 3 times 4 is 12. And so that's going to be the answer here. But why do they call it my method in the same class? So that's because initially they were showing you that if you have a global method on the outside, you can test the global method on the outside. But then now we're within the same class. And the question is, can you return your method in the same class. And so here they're calling it in the same class, in this indented area within this class end block of code. And so therefore it just shows you that you can do that. So let's save this and make sure I'm right on that. So that was 118, now we're on 119, 105. So 105. Looks like we were right on that one. In Ruby, you can return methods that are in the same class. Now, if you started another class within this class and you tried calling this one, it would be outside of its scope. But I think that we'll learn more about that in a future one. So here, test calling methods in the same class with explicit receiver. So self.myMethod in same class with an explicit receiver. Oh, interesting. Huh. Undefined myMethod. So my guess is that this is going to be, I'm not sure. When we raked this, it said to equal 12. That was on line 101, and we're on 105. So it's still looking for 12, but here it's allowing you to say self.myMethod in this class. Okay, so what does that mean? About methods. So in this, you can call, there's two different ways that you can call methods in your class. You can say self.myMethod in the same class, or you can just call it explicitly like this. So yeah, let's run the rake here. This is difficult to understand without having a greater understanding of some stuff that we're going to go over in the future. But for now, just know that you can call self dot and then the class within, a method within the class for which you're calling self on. And self will become more understandable later. So here we've got my private method, which is a secret. And then we set the method to a private method. And then here we test calling private methods without the receiver. So my private method, assert equal. I'm not even sure what this would do. So let's throw it into IRB just to get an idea. So my private method becomes initialized into the memory. And then we call the private function on the my private method there. So it sets it to an object. And then what happens if we call my private method? It just returns a secret. So it still returns the string. Oh, okay, yes, of course. So it's still going to return the thing. But I'm thinking that it's going to show us why setting some methods to private is cool. I think one thing you could say is if you were to go my private method. Oh, I thought maybe it wouldn't autocorrect, but I guess it does. Anyways, so 116 is where we're at now. So we can run rake to see where that's at. It looks like expected fill me in to equal a secret. So I didn't save, so I'm just command S-ing and then running rake. Now we're on 121, so that was correct. So down here, 121. Yeah, so before Ruby 2.7, this is way before I even started using Ruby. So they're kind of giving us some history information about this now. Self.myPrivateMessage. I mean, testing private methods within an explicit receiver. Oops, I don't want to run that up here. But let's see if we can run it here. My private method called on main. No method error. That's what I'm going to guess that this is. So if I save that and rake it, expected private method to match blank. Oh, look, so 124. We did get that right. So here, I think we can just say private method. Expected. Yeah, this is the error message that we're looking for. I'm not really interested in looking into these old ones. Let's get rid of this. It might change it up. So yeah, save that. Right in the rake. 122. So now we're on 144. I'm not understanding exactly what this is, but I don't think I'll ever use older versions of Ruby, so I'm not really sure the usefulness of diving into that. 144. Okay, cool. So now what we're doing is we've created a new class here, which is within our about methods class. So this is a very interesting and super useful example. Understanding this class inheritance is very valuable in Ruby. So here we have defined a method named Fido, a name, which returns a string called Fido. And then afterwards we have our private methods where we have tail. So test calling methods in other objects require explicit receiver. So rover is equal to dog.new. So this is a big jump, but what they're saying is in these class ones you can do instantiated variables. So if you call dog.new, then you have a new dog. And then if you say rover.name, it's going to be rover is an instance of class. And so rover, because it's an instance of class, has the name and tail element to it. So rover.name is going to come out to Fido. This is a big step. So in order for us to get that in there, first we need to have copied this into our REPL. And so now we have dog.class. You can see that the dog is a class. And we can go dog.new, and you'll see there's new dog. And so if we were to say, useful programmer dog is equal to dog.new, then useful programmer dog dot name will be equal to Fido. So because we instantiated this class, we can create a new dog, and that dog immediately already has a name of Fido. This would be better if it said something like breed of canine or something like that, because a dog is going to have explicit characteristics within it, but things like name will want to be set. But I'm sure we'll be doing that a bit in the future. So yeah, let's rake this just to make sure we've got it right. 149. Here we are. We're on our last one. And I'm actually interested to find out what happens here. If you call, because we're outside of the dog class now, what happens if we try to get the tail? It says a private method tail, so no method error here. So they're just trying to show you that if you're outside of the class and you try to call a private class method, it gives you a no method error. So let's save that and run rake. And it looks like we've moved on to the next file about keyword arguments. So we've completed our about methods here. And so this is just showing, again, rover.new, it makes a new dog, and that dog has all these attributes, but the rover.tail is hidden because it's behind the private attribute. In Rails, you'll often see this comment tabbed up one so that all the private methods are double indented. You don't see that as much in Ruby though. But yeah, that takes care of this one, which is the about methods. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll see you in the next one.